What is up, everybody, and welcome back to Spoilers Only. Today on the show, we are chatting about some new Hulu miniseries that actually recently just ended, so we'll be able to talk about them in their entirety. We are chatting about The Dropout and The Girl from Plainville, which are two Hulu originals that are also true crime, true stories. And we're super excited to chat about it. Inea, are you excited to chat about these shows?
Yes, and I am embarrassed to say that I forgot what the dropout was called. This whole time I've just been referring to it as like, oh, the Elizabeth Holmes one. So you
I'm sure a lot of other people have, though.
Other than that, yeah, let's just kind of get straight into it. So, because they're pretty crazy stories, and it's really crazy to think that people out here are just doing some pretty crazy illegal things. We know this, but like this is like next level for both. But both stories are just next level.
That's true. Were you familiar with the cases before these shows?
Yeah, I remember hearing about the Michelle Carter story, the one that the girl from Plainview was based on when I was like a sophomore in high school because I had to research it for my journalism class. Um, and I just was like, that this is nutballs, man, because people are crazy. I'm gonna say that a lot this episode, but like people are absolutely insane, and I don't know how someone could think to do this to someone that they claim to love because we'll get into the like details of the story, but yeah, I just think that that's horrible, and I think that she should have served longer. But next, the Elizabeth Holmes story. I was vaguely familiar with what happened. There isn't like too much that you know one has to know to know the story because really the grand scheme is just she was an entrepreneur or whatever. She had this business startup and she pretty much lied to investors and the product was not real. And she just kept getting money while still not delivering the product. I also think that that's part on the investors for being gullible, but people are gonna tell me not to victim blame or whatever. But yeah, I think both of them are pretty crazy in
Yeah.
their own ways. They're all horrible people because, like, do I think that lying is inherently bad? No, absolutely not. However, do what you want. You can scam billionaires. I don't care. That doesn't affect me because I'm far from a billionaire. However, I think that Elizabeth Holmes, what makes her horrible uniquely is the fact that the product that she was looking to what was lying about creating was about helping people who have chronic like illnesses, genetic disorders, illnesses and whatnot. So to tell people, say, who are like seeking out, like, say, a cancer diagnosis or whatever, you're lying about their diagnosis with this product that does not exist, and you're faking test results to, appease the investors in the market.
Yeah. Yeah,
That's
it was kind of like because the
insanity.
idea that she had was like, I mean, that's a pretty interesting, remarkable idea. Because, nobody likes getting tubes and tubes of blood being drawn. And just the fact that they could do it with that small amount, game changer for people that need blood tests and things like that. But I feel like with her story, you had two sides of it. You had the, like you said, the billionaire investors that were being lied to, and then you had the consumers that were being lied to. So you had two separate things. And, the more these investors put into it, the more money that it was attracting and she was getting and everything, the more, falsified test record results that would come out. And, families and patients' lives would be changed because they think they'd have one thing or they think they were clear of another and, vice versa. But in relation to like being familiar with the two cases, with the Elizabeth Holmes case, I saw a couple documentaries in recent years. I think there was like a 48 hours or a 2020
Yeah.
documentary or something. Oh, and I think there was an HBO one as well. I think it was like The Inventor or something like that. And that was pretty interesting. And then with the Michelle Carter investigation, I think that one was a 48 hours that I had seen. And I remember it in the news as well. I remember it being pretty heavily televised and hearing about it. And I believe HBO recently, I'm gonna look it up super fast because I'm pretty certain HBO just recently did a documentary about it. Yes, it's like another documentary called "I Love You Now Die: The Commonwealth versus Michelle Carter," and it was like a two-part documentary film. The HBO documentary about the Michelle Carter case, I think it came out a couple years ago, but I think I saw it advertised recently, so I think both cases have probably risen a little bit in popularity because of these two shows. And they kind of came out around the same time too, both of these Hulu shows.
Mm-hmm.
So I think a lot of people were probably interested in going back and looking into all this stuff, especially since Elizabeth Holmes' sentencing is in September, I believe, of this year. I'm sure a lot more people since these shows have come out have probably went back and watched a lot more stuff and have tried to become more involved until you kind of find out her fate when it's sentencing day. But another question for you is, is there any other TV shows that you have seen that are based on true events that you like, or are you like a fan of true crime type shows, or no?
Um, you saying that out loud made me. I remember actually saying this in the Only Murders episode. Not a
Oh
fan of true
yeah.
crime. Not a fan of true crime. But I think these two cases were interesting to me, or at least these two series were interesting to me because they did come out back to back as well. But I do remember reading up on them when they were, some years ago. So I was familiar with them and enough to know, like, oh, this is weird. I would like to know more. And also, I would like to know, like, what all went on in these times for you guys to make an entire series about them, not just a documentary, but a series. And I think that that's a whole new realm of something when that people decide to make like the actual series, kind of dramatizing everything that happened rather than detailing them in a documentary style.
Mm. Yeah, I get that. Because when it comes to true crime and me, like I watch Dateline a lot, 48 hours type shows, but those are sort of like you said, the documentary style, um, maybe an hour or two. This is more, they have the actors play the people in these events, and I know there's been a lot of movies about true crime stuff too. Um, but I know there's been a lot of, I feel like there's been a rise in TV shows this year, in the past couple years, about like true events, but then they have actors play the people. Because I know on NBC more recently there was a show with Renee Zellweger called The Thing About Pam, and that was actually lifted from a Dateline podcast. So shout out to podcasts becoming TV shows. Um, but yeah, I didn't watch that, but my aunt did, and she enjoyed it. So I've heard some good things about it, but I feel like I don't know. I feel like it's the year of true crime because there's just been a lot of like, or like not just true crime, but there's been a lot of shows based on true events. So I think that's pretty cool, though.
So what's the thing about Pam about?
I guess it's something about this lady, I guess named Pam, is involved in some like murders and disappearances in the neighborhood. But she kind of plays the role of like she didn't have anything to do with it, but I guess she was involved. I don't know too much about the real case, but I just saw a lot of commercials about it. And I saw a little bit of a Dateline, like they had a special episode of Dateline um about the actual case and how they turned it into a show. Um but I never really got too involved with that one because I actually didn't really hear about it when it was actually happening either. Like with these cases, I heard about it a lot in the news, so that was kind of new. I had never really heard about it until the TV show was coming out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
And something else about these two shows, The Girl from Plainville and The Dropout, is both. I love how even though they did come out around the same time and they are like, based on true events thing, both of the actresses in the show had to like change their appearance a bit to look like their real life counterparts. I thought they did a really good job with
Oh,
that.
definitely. Um, I was gonna say something. Oh yeah, I remember when I was in high school when I was reading up on this case. I honestly thought that they could probably have. This is gonna sound weird. Probably, maybe, I don't know. Let me say it first. I thought that they could have had like if they were gonna make a show about it, which they eventually did, obviously. Uh, they could have Cara Delevingne play Michelle
Oh,
Carter, because there
yeah.
was just like one picture that I saw where I'm just like, oh, why she look like Cara Delevingne? That's crazy. She's an actress. She could play her here, but I guess not. But I think that Elle Fanning did a really good job at playing her.
Yeah.
So
I
they
think she
definitely
did
made
too.
her. She see they styled her uh, perfectly, so she looks just like the real life version
Yeah.
version.
And
Um,
something that's funny is it's something that kind of ties us all full circle of what we were saying is Cara Delevingne is going to be in Only Murders season 2.
oh, for some reason I thought you said Elle Fanning. Yeah, I heard about that. Apparently she's gonna be Mabel's love interest
Yeah.
or something. So we'll see how that goes. Oh, speaking of Only Murders, did you hear about when it's gonna air?
Yeah, and near the end of June, right?
Yep, because I was actually watching whatever the show is called, uh Girl from Plainview. Jeez, forgot that fast. I was actually watching that the other night to kind of brush up on things, and she that an ad for that came on, and I thought it was already airing because it said streaming now. So I got really confused and excited, but they meant just season one was streaming now. Um,
Yeah, I can't wait for season 2. That's like a special show for us because that was the first show we talked about on Spoilers
mhm.
Only. So that's always going to be a special show.
Only birders in the building.
Yep.
Good old. But yeah, I'm really excited for season two for that one. But let's kind of dive into. Do you want to dive into Dropout or Girl from Plainview first?
Oh, you pick.
Of course, you would ask me that. Um, let's start off with the Dropout since I watched that one first.
Yeah.
So, were you familiar with the case of Elizabeth Holmes and her tomfoolery beforehand?
Yeah, I
You
was
literally just
actually.
told
I
me that.
didn't know too much of like the inside too many inside details. I think the writers and cast in this show did a really good job of providing context, and you really saw her you kind of started with her like preteens age and all the
Mm-hmm.
way up till now, and I think uh I think they did a good job of showing everything. And like I had said before, I had seen like a couple documentaries, but I had never really been super super into it. But I knew like I knew like what the whole gist of it was. But I think one thing that I just remembered was the creator of this show, yes, creator of The Dropout was also the creator of New Girl.
Really? Oh, yeah. Elizabeth Merriweather.
Yeah. So I thought that was a pretty interesting fact when I first saw that, when I first started the show.
She's a good writer. I like her.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, about the Dropout. Do you think you would have fallen for the for the diddly darn if you were an investor?
That's a good
Because
question.
the way that Elizabeth acquired like what was it, like a $4.5 billion net worth without actually
Mm-hmm.
having a company is basically so. The Dropout is about this woman named Elizabeth Holmes, and if you aren't familiar with her, well, buckle in or Google it. I don't know. So basically, it's about this woman named Elizabeth Holmes who was a Stanford University student who decided, hey, I have an idea for this like invention. It'll like totally like revolutionize the healthcare industry. You guys should like help me totally do this. And they were like, hey, Elizabeth, you're so crazy, girl. Why don't you finish your major? Because she was like what, a freshman in college in the series. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
I'm
what I
pretty
thought.
sure.
Yeah, so she only did like 1-2 years of high school, not high school, college, and then decided, hey, I'm gonna drop out and I'm gonna work on this project, and then she, got her people to help her, and then they started, working on this thing, and basically what the thing was, it was eventually called Theranos, which she was the whole gist of the product was you hate going to the doctor and getting like copious amounts of blood drawn and to be able to get tests done. So what if we could just take like a speck of blood and we can run tests and be able to diagnose you like on the spot. So she was trying to create this a product that everybody was like, hey, that's really unrealistic, especially like, with your complete lack of experience, because again, she only went to college for like 1 year and I don't even think she finished that year. She does that and then she pitches this idea to a bunch of investors and they're like, hey, we like your words, Magic Man. I like your fancy words, Magic Man. And they decide to invest in her. And she just smooth talks her way into like billions of dollars of investments. And somehow I guess she was that much of a smooth talker, even though the product was really not made. But they're like, hey, why would we want to invest in you if you don't have results? And she's just like, hey, I'll show you. I can show you later. Ha 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 ha. And they were like,
Mm-hmm.
cool, we got you. We totally believe you. And then they invested. And then, she was actively working on the project and whatnot. However, there was no real progress being made. It was being showed that, that the actual Theranos tool was, they were using other people's machinery. It wasn't actually being made. The prototype it did not work. None of their tests worked. So they faked a lot of their test results and whatnot, and they would send these test results out to people who, actually had illnesses and whatnot. So, um, yeah, she just really was smooth talking her way into billions of dollars, and then people were like, "Hey, this is pretty messed up." I think it ended up making its way into like a couple of Walgreens,
Mm-hmm.
despite the fact that the machine did not work.
Yeah.
I explained
Which
that
I
so
think that's
greatly.
crazy.
I explained that so greatly.
No, I think I was gonna say first off, um, for the longest time when I'd see this in the news, I used to say Thanos instead of Theranos. Used to call it
The Thanos
Thanos.
machine.
First off, but second, back to your question about whether I'd fall for it. She was definitely, like you said, like she would smooth talk her way into things, and I think, you know, the fact that like she was actively working on it, I think everybody wanted to believe her because, it was a woman-owned company, and she was working on it, and it was going to revolutionize the healthcare industry, and it was going to help so many people. Um, and I think everybody wanted to believe it, and they looked pretty gullible after that. But I think, for healthcare can be a, kind of male dominated space. I think a lot of CEOs and founders and things like that. So I think to have a woman up, when she would do like upfronts or TED Talks, whatever, things like that, I think a lot of people just wanted to see her succeed. Even though half the time she didn't know how she was going to do it either. And she would run into all these problems and, with like the Walgreens rollout and how you said the machine wasn't even working and some of the test results would be kind of fabricated and, they would be wrong. I'm looking forward to her sentencing because that's always like the trial and the sentencing. That's always like the most interesting thing for me.
Go to
I'm excited to
jail.
see.
Go to jail.
I'm looking forward to see how that's gonna roll out. And especially because at the end of the show, but also in real life, she I think recently had a child and has like a new partner or a new boyfriend. I was gonna ask you the same question. I was gonna say, do you think that you would have fallen for her
Okie
scheme
doke.
if you were an investor?
I would not have fallen for the okie doke because you see, unlike these billion-dollar companies and these people with all this money and their big brains, if I get that she, was a smooth talker and she got her way out of these situations just by being just having a way with words and whatnot and being able to present herself perfectly fine and appearing as this dominating person who like knows exactly what they're doing. But I just feel like I'm sure they were promised to see the product. She never showed them at all. In fact, nobody who worked outside of Theranos saw said product. And the people who worked at like Walgreens and whatnot, they had to sign like copious amounts of NDAs in order to be able to get into the labs. So, I just feel like if you can't even show me like just a quick little what is that show called? A little Shark Tank rundown, I'm not giving you money. I might tell you like, hey, you show me this and then I'll invest. But if you refuse to show me or, actually turn up any results, I'm not gonna, no, I'm not gonna. That's all it took was she promised them results, but no, you better show results beforehand. And she
Mm-hmm.
was far enough into the development of Theranos to be able to show results, even if it was, at that point, it wasn't just an idea. She actually had like prototypes in production. So she could have done something more than just like, ha, I'll show you if you give me the money. No, I'll hit you with a rock.
Yeah. And you know what? I
Who
I
said
love
that?
Shark Tank. I'm so glad that you mentioned that because first of all, I love that show. And also it's funny because there's been so many times where people will come on and present their company or their product and if they can't, carry on a conversation, if they can't say like, well, this is our rate of return, or this is our, this is how much money I've put in, and this is our equity, and all those big fancy words. Um, they'll get turned down. They won't get the investment. They won't have the shark become an investor. So I think that's also interesting that you mentioned that. I was going to mention some of the famous people of some of the cast that I recognized that I was
Oh,
surprised to see in the show. What were
oh,
you going to
gentleman
say?
at Wallows.
Yes.
Gentleman at Wallows. I forget he's an
Yes.
actor sometimes, even though I have seen him on TV way before I, have ever heard of Wallows. So, yeah. I also think that Amanda Seyfried did a really good job playing the role. But what I was going to say
Definitely.
is Elizabeth Holmes's like signature talk, the way she talked.
Yes.
How do you feel about that?
I remember when I was watching the 2020 documentary, I started hearing her voice and it was just interesting to me. And I think they had a little like snippet on it where they were like, do you think that was an act to look more professional, or do you think that was? And I thought it was funny because I tried to like emulate it, and I was just like watching the TV, and I was like, Theranos, tubes and tubes of blood. Like it just wasn't going out right. I couldn't do it. But what are your thoughts on that?
She kept doing the same thing, like in front of the mirror. She would like go like here at Theranos, we would we practice healthcare stuffs. I forgot what she would say like in front of the mirror, but just like would like start like slowly dropping her voice, and her voice would be like more throat than like a head voice, and she would just keep doing it in front of the mirror, just practicing. And I'm like, dude, you're for real crazy. But I totally get why she did it, because if you I saw a video of her like slipping up, and then her real voice kind of slipped out, and it was a very feminine high voice. If that was her, if that was real, a very feminine voice. So if she's like sounds like this, it sounds like she doesn't know what she's doing, because obviously, as you said, healthcare being a male dominated industry, you guys are a little iffy because she's a woman, and of course, if she's like super feminine, you guys are like, oh, she's not serious, because we know why. Misogyny.
Mm-hmm.
Which is why she presented more on the business professional side rather than girly girl. Whereas now, I'm not gonna say it's more acceptable. It's just that a lot more girls are just like not really caring, and they'll do like the whole Elle Woods thing where they show up in a pink blazer and a whole like head to toe pink and furry. And I think that's great. Do what you want. But yeah, I think that it was just to appear more dominating than than like a reclusive person. So I know that the voice was fake. Obviously, in the show, they know the voice is fake, because in the show, she has this normal voice, but then when she starts working on Theranos, then she starts dropping her voice to sound like this, and then like she'll make the face like this. Theranos, Elizabeth Holmes. That's literally. Anyway, yeah. So it was fake. It was fake, obviously. But I honestly understand why she did it. Apart from why I just explained why, because I do the same thing too. When I'm at work, obviously, I have my normal speaking voice. I just talk like this all day. Whatever. I'll be talking to my coworkers, and I'm just like, "Hey guys, what's up? How's it going?" And I'll talk to a customer like, "Hey, so was that all for you? Was that all? Cool. Your change is $11.97. Whoa there, buddy. Why is your voice so high?" Or on the phone, I'll do the same thing, but I think that it's more of like you can tell my voice is more strained on the phone, and I really don't want to do it right now. So, everybody has their
I know what
customer
you mean,
service
though.
voice. Everybody has like a voice for every situation, whether it be a customer service voice, one to where you want to present yourself more seriously, but not aggressively. It's just, you have your own catalog of voices, and I guess she had her catalog of voices, which, she kept up pretty consistently. So
Totally.
props to her, I guess,
totally
for
agree.
consistency.
The first thing that came to mind when you mentioned that and how you said your voice changes, I instantly thought everyone has the customer service voice. So I'm guilty of that too. And I think also like on the phone, like even just calling to like make a doctor's appointment or order pizza or whatever, like just to talk on the phone, even talking to family, I'll notice like, I'll be talking to a friend or something and I'll just be like, oh, hey, what's going on? And then I'll pick up the phone. And as soon as that phone hits my face, I'm just like, hi, how are you? Hi. Like, it's so crazy. But yeah, that's true. That's a true thing.
So I can't
little thing that a little thing that I picked up on, and I was reading this list here. I will give it a shout out. It is from businessinsider.com. It's 18 wild details from the dropout and whether they really happened or not. because, all shows tend to dramatize a little bit. But what I thought was really interesting was it says here, and yes, Theranos really did fake its demo for Novartis, the pharmaceutical giant in Switzerland in 2006.
Mhm.
It says, as depicted in the show, a device malfunctioned when they were in Switzerland, and the Theranos crew stayed up all night to try and fix it. When it came time for the demo the next morning and it still wasn't fixed, they had a recorded test result beamed over from California that they presented as real-time test result, according to former Wall Street Journal reporter John
That's so
Carreyrou's
messed up.
book.
That's so messed up. Like I said, lying trivially
Mhm.
is one thing, but you're lying about something, especially healthcare. Garbage
Yeah.
person.
That's what I think is also like why so many people were invested in it and why it just touched a nerve with everyone is because, you know, there's people, me myself included, get nervous to go to the doctor, or they get nervous if they have to have a test result or something because that's your health. That's something that you can't really you can and you can't control it depending on genetics and whatever. But something that you always just want the truth about is your health, and you don't want that to be messed with or played with, especially played with for profit because she was making all of this money on things that were not working. And so I just think I think that's why so many people were invested in it, because it's like something as crucial as getting good health care and wanting truthful test results. Even that was sort of put into a sort of profit machine. So because I feel like everybody can make a profit off of anything nowadays. So
Oh,
it's kind of
definitely.
crazy, but it's
Obviously.
also, yeah, it's just the world we live in. But yeah, um, yeah, I mean, overall, I thought the show was great, and I thought everybody in it did a fantastic job. Is it still like, uh, I'm sure it is. It's probably in the running for some Emmys and Golden Globes, probably in the miniseries categories.
I have no idea. Didn't the Emmys just happen? Or am I like, or is my perception of
Mm,
time just that bad?
no, the Grammys were April, so I think the Emmys are usually September, so it's probably gonna be
I feel like
submitted.
I felt like they just happened. Oh my god. That's crazy. Whatever. I think that she's an insane person, and she totally deserves jail time because you don't mess with people's health care. You don't mess with
Mm-hmm.
people's perception of their health because obviously you want a finite answer. You want a definite answer about what you have and what you don't have, especially when regarding your health, your actual health. So maybe don't lie to people and say that they have something when they don't, or tell people, hey, you're all clear when they have like a blood disease.
Yeah.
Whatever though. Like I said, jail time forever.
Do you think she will get jail time?
Yeah. Even if it's like not that long of a time, because with the other case we'll be discussing here with Michelle Carter only got like 11, she only served 11 months.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, that
11
was
out of
really
15,
interesting.
11 out of 15 months when this case has been ongoing for years. Y'all couldn't have like, because the original case took place in what, 2014, and she only just recently, a couple of years ago, went to jail for 11 months. Like, y'all could, it took y'all a couple years to come to conclusion about this case.
Yeah. I pulled up something about Elizabeth Holmes's charges and what she was convicted on. So on January 3rd of this year, she was found guilty on 4 counts of defrauding investors, 3 counts of wire fraud, and 1 of conspiracy to commit wire fraud. She was found not guilty on 4 counts of defrauding patients, 3 counts of wire fraud, and one of conspiracy to commit wire fraud. And the jury returned no verdict on 3 counts of wire fraud against investors. So that was declared a mistrial, and the government agreed to dismiss them. So her sentence, so total, she was found guilty on 4 charges. Her sentence, she faces a maximum of 20 years in prison and a fine of $250,000 plus restitution for each count of wire fraud and for each conspiracy count. So the sentences would likely be served concurrently, so an effective maximum of 20 years total. And the sentencing, like we said earlier, is September 26th, 2020. So that will be very interesting. I will be tuned in to see what happens with that.
You said not guilty? Yeah, but she's not going to jail. Because I guess the defrauding the patients, that wasn't like, for some reason, their like biggest scandal of sorts, which I think morally that should be like top of the list. Yeah, you scam people out of like billions of dollars, but you know what? Money come, money go.
Yeah,
I don't know.
So guilty.
It's a tricky
She was
situation.
She was found guilty on the 4 counts of defrauding the investors, but then not guilty on the patients, which I think is crazy because it should have just been a clean sweep, honestly. Because we know she did these things, so
whatever though.
But but it was 4.
Balls.
Yeah, it was 4 convictions, so that definitely will she'll definitely have some sort of sentence. I'm just looking forward to it. Just seems so long from now, September, because she was found guilty in January. That just seems like so long from now, but it's almost June, honestly, so it's gonna be here like in a day.
September. I see My Chemical Romance in September.
Oh, that's right.
Nice. But yeah, speaking of the judicial system being absolutely nutballs, shall we move on to our other case?
Yeah, let's switch gears. Yep. Let's switch gears here. Let's chat about The Girl from Plainville, another Hulu original.
Is it Plainville or Plainview? I don't feel like Googling it real quick because my phone's being weird.
Plainville.
Okay, I just confusing myself is all.
Yeah. So
that's all.
This was a case that I think I knew a little bit more about just because it was very popular on social media. It was very popular on TV. The case, I can remember hearing a lot about it, especially on like the HLN channel, because they cover a lot of cases, and I saw a lot about it, a lot on the internet as well, because it was a very, what's the word I'm looking for? It was kind of like an internet centralized case because the actual crime that, she committed was done through phones. So it was definitely a, 21st century crime. One quick thing that I'll mention about one of the stars of the show, let's see. Yes, Colton Ryan, who played Conrad Roy, he was in a show that I absolutely loved that was on Apple TV. I think it came out in 2020, and it was called Little Voice, and it was by Sarah Bareilles, the singer-songwriter, and it was a fantastic show about a musician, and she was trying to become famous, and she had these friends that helped her, with music, and she had some family issues, and it was just a fantastic show. It was on for 1 season, and then it got canceled, and I was heartbroken. But Colton Ryan was in that show, and he was phenomenal in it. So just a quick shout out to that, because I was really excited to see him in something since then, because I really did enjoy that show. But that's not entirely related to the case of Michelle Carter. I just wanted to shout that out because that was a really good show. So were you familiar with that case? I think you mentioned a little while ago that you researched it for your journalism class.
Yep. I just didn't know how like deep the rabbit hole really went with that case. So I definitely did more research after watching the show to kind of see the full effect, and it's way worse than I originally thought. So yeah, let's get right in there.
All right. So tell the people listening what's the premise of The Girl from Plainville.
So basically, the girl from Plainville.
Ville.
Okay, I keep telling myself that it's Plainview for some reason. Anyway, so the girl from Plainville, Bill, is about a girl who lives in Plainville. The end. No. So it's about this girl from Plainville, Massachusetts, and she meets this one guy named Conrad on a family vacation, and it turns out that they live in the same state, same area. He lives like in a town like an hour away from her, and so then they become like besties and boyfriend and girlfriend and whatnot. So they ended up like texting all the stinking time, just all day, all night, throughout the every time. But anyway, so what really sucks between them is the fact that both of them struggled with mental illnesses. Conrad struggled with like depression and anxiety, and she suffered with like eating disorders and stuff and whatnot. So they were both mentally ill, obviously. And there was just a point where Conrad started expressing that he wanted to kill himself, and instead of seeking out help or discouraging him and giving him great words of encouragement, she's just like, haha, do it. You should like totally do it. In fact, you know what? Do it tonight. Do it tonight. Do it tonight. You ain't bad. Do it tonight. And then eventually he actually did it tonight. So, and then she decided to act surprised that he died, even though, she literally coached him through the entire process, told him like, hey, do it right now, stay in the car, suffocate yourself to death, go die. And just was just a really weird, interesting person. Again,
Yeah.
I explain that so terrifically. Where's my award?
Yeah, and it's definitely chilling. I think out of the two series that we're talking about today, this definitely was a little bit more chilling because I feel like a lot of teens and young adults nowadays, we grow up with our phones and we grow up with, for many different things, having anxiety, depression, any kind of, mental disorder. And all that you want to have is like support, and everything that everybody says to do is make sure you're checking in on your friends and you're supporting them, and you're, if they do have suicidal thoughts or if they feel that way, you have to help them. And she just did the absolute opposite, and it was just terrible. I mean, it's awful. Like, I remember hearing about it, and I can't believe that it was back in 2014. Do I have that right? That it happened, because I remember hearing about it. I can't believe it was that long ago, because I remember hearing about that. I remember hearing about when the trial was starting and the investigation and all of these developments that were happening. It's hard to believe that that was like nearly 10 years ago. And it's still, it's still being talked about. There's still TV shows and things in pop culture that this case has influenced, I think. And I think it also probably changed a lot with mental health and friends as well, because something about this show is it did kind of shine a light on, young adults and just the whole topic of mental health. And I believe it's May, so I believe it is Mental Health Awareness Month. So it's kind of timely that we're discussing it now, and that the show, I think it just recently ended too, so it just ended just before. I think just with this case, like it being televised and it being, especially like on the internet, like I was saying before, I heard about this a lot on Twitter, on social media, um, not just in the news, not just on like a Dateline or documentaries and stuff, but I think it also, for some people, it probably changed the way they ask for help, and it also probably made people probably check up on their friends more because, you know, you have the two people, you have Michelle and Conrad, who both have suffered from different mental illnesses and disorders. And you would think that because she knew what he was going through, that, you know, she could be telling him what she would also want to hear if she were in that uh, situation of wanting to end your life. And so it was just, it's still to this day, like it's quite flabbergasting, for lack of a better word. The fact that, like how you said, she was coaching him through it and telling him what to do. So what were there any parts of the show that kind of stuck out to you? You know, you knowing a little bit about the case beforehand, and you said you wanted to research it more after. Was there anything in the show that stuck out to you?
I think what stuck out to me the absolute most about this show and about the whole case as a whole was her obsession with Glee. And as somebody who is a Glee enjoyer, that made me feel disgusting. But also, I'm not like obsessed with the show or the cast or, you know, especially in that way. She was that was a whole new level of crazy. Put her in an institution somewhere because like not only was like she just, you know, she was a fan of Glee, a watcher of Glee, a Glee enjoyer, a Gleek, one might still say, but she was obsessed with Leah Michelle, and this was like a real life occurrence as well. You know, in real life, she was obsessed with Leah Michelle, who plays Rachel in the show. Who
Mm-hmm.
in the show we can see, you know, her like in the episode where the character Finn, they're having a tribute to him, which was actually a tribute to Corey Monteith, the actor who played Finn. He died in real life, so you know
Mm-hmm.
they obviously killed off the character as well in a tribute episode to him. And in that episode, Leah Michelle as Rachel talks about how, you know, she sings a song and she goes like says her spiel about her and Finn and whatnot. Which, mind you, they dated in real life before he passed. So, but in the show, we can see Michelle Carter in The Girl from Plainville, kind of in the mirror, pretty much like replicating that scene in her own bedroom, pretending that she's Rachel, you know, and that there even is like this whole like musical sequence where they're like doing like a Glee musical number. So the girl was obsessed with Glee, and she would text her friends like quotes from the show and pretend like they were her own words and whatnot about her and Conrad. Like it was insane.
Mm.
So she used Glee and her love for Glee as a tool to uh, communicate her fake feelings about Conrad. And the reason I say fake feelings because, you know, you say that you love someone so much and how, you know, you this is like the love of your life. You feel like the happiest, most prettiest princess ever. But yet you let him kill himself. And if you know, usually with suicidal people, uh if they're reaching out to you and telling you like, hey, I'm going to kill myself, I am going to put a stop to these things, my life is going to be over because I'm gonna do it, you don't say, ha, you should do it. You should actually take sleeping pills because, like, you can die in your sleep. You should, suffocate yourself with carbon monoxide because, your lungs will just give out. You shouldn't just tell them that. You get them help, but they're reaching out to you. That's their way
Mm-hmm.
of getting help. It's not directly saying, "Hey, I'm struggling. I need your help." That's them acting out in a way to reach out indirectly. It's because when you're suicidal, you don't actually want to die. You just want a release from whatever pain and grievances you're going through at that moment. So him, who, Conrad was struggling with his mental health with, both depression and anxiety. And he's telling her, someone who he's like, he thinks he's like super close with and whatnot, hey, I attempted suicide before. I failed though, but I want to do it again because I want to end my life. And he's only telling her, someone who you think you're close with, you're having like these intimate conversations with at 3 o'clock in the morning. It's not all for nothing. He's reaching out to you for help, and then instead of actually helping him through it by telling him like, hey, no, we'll get to this together or whatever, or calling the police and saying, hey, my friend, he's a danger to himself right now, please go get him or whatever, you tell him, you should do it during the daytime. That way it'll be a little less suspicious. What do you mean
Yeah.
suspicious? And I actually read the transcript of like their final text messages from the last day. And you
Mm-hmm.
can tell that he was stalling. And obviously it shows that he didn't want to do it, but her constant motivation and whatnot ultimately did push him to it. So, and they'll say like, hey, well, in the court cases, they'll say he was suicidal. So, obviously he wanted to do it. She's not really at fault because he already had a plan. Like I said, you can be suicidal and still not want to do it. And
Yeah.
he was stalling because when you're faced with the reality of it happening, it's a little stark. It's a little scary. So, she was crazy because also it did not stop with her just helping him through it. She
Yeah.
was
And I think also I think how how you said he was reaching out, like he was telling somebody what he was going to do because he was also seeking help in the same way. Like he wanted whatever he was going through to be over, but he was also seeking help. Um, I think that also shows how close of a bond he thought he had with Michelle and also how he trusted her. And I guess, he thought that she would get him the help that he needed and she would be a voice for him and some support. And it just, I
no,
kind
she
of,
supported him all right.
yeah, I feel like I sometimes don't have the right words to say it because it is shocking. It's just such a shocking thing because we all have, you know, either anxiety, depression. We all either go through something like that or we know someone who has. And it's the fact that, I feel like young adults nowadays, but also, older people as well, we sort of train ourselves to help people when they're going through something like that. And I feel like the first thing you would want to do is either call an ambulance or call a doctor or, call a parent even. I mean, there were so many things that she could have done and he would still be here. And, he would be just a wonderful person, I'm sure. And it's shocking and sad. But to get off the, sadder subject a little bit, I'm just skipping forward a little to her trial and her ultimate conviction. You were saying how you, it's kind of ridiculous how she only spent 11 months in prison on her involuntary manslaughter charge,
Mhm.
conviction, I should say. Um, so what are some more of your thoughts on that?
I think it should have been longer because, as I said, it went it's a lot deeper than just her ultimately telling him, "Hey, you're suicidal? That's okay. You should do it. You should go through with it. That's okay." No, she told him, she coached him through it the entire like over the course of like an entire day and the evening before. She apparently she had his family's phone numbers. This I know she had like his family's phone numbers and like contact information. She did not call anybody. In fact, she was like texting her friends, telling like, "Hey, haha, my boyfriend, he's missing. Like, oh no, like somebody console me. Like my boyfriend's missing." Meanwhile, she's texting him, uh, getting him through his situation, trying to get him to do it. And I don't think she really, I don't know what she could have possibly thought that she was helping back then, because if you think about it, she was 17 at the time, so obviously, you know, brain power is a little slow, but I just feel like if someone that you claim to love as much as she claimed to love him comes to you and says that they're struggling with their mental health to the degree that they want to end their own life, your first reaction would not be, "So when are you going to do it? Are you going to do it tonight? You should do it tonight." It's always like, "Hey, don't do that."
Yeah.
So,
And I mean, we were all 17 once, and I doubt that anyone else in that situation would have done what she did. Like I understand, the thing of, oh, your brain isn't fully developed until your early 20s and whatever, but it's like in the world we live in today and how, thankfully.
you have enough awareness at 17 to know that it's wrong. And I don't care how developed your brain is. You have self-awareness at that
Yeah,
point.
I know. And I was going to say, thankfully, there's a lot of the stigma around mental health and seeking help for it. There still is a stigma, but I feel like it's better in recent years. I think it's good that it's becoming a big conversation for a lot of people. Because like personally speaking, anxiety is not fun. Depression is not fun. It hurts. And I feel like with it, that's why sometimes I stumble over words, because it's still watching the show, watching documentaries, being familiar with the case, just sitting and talking about it. I still cannot believe that even though that was almost 10 years ago, that actually happened. And like, on the surface, it's like, oh, he asked for help and she said, oh, well, you should go and do it. Like you said,
She
it was
helps
so
in the
much
absolute
deeper.
worst way possible.
Yeah, it was so much deeper, and there was so much more that went into it. And at any point, she could have stopped it, and she could have said, all right, this has gone on too far. I'm going to get you help or something. And like you said, she was texting her other friends, and it's just, it's, it's still really
Because
shocking.
in his final day when they were talking, he tells her, "I'll do it. I'll do it in the morning. I'll do it later on. I'll do it this afternoon. I'll do it tonight." But in between every time he would say that, "Oh, I'm gonna do it," he texts her back and be like, "Oh, sorry, I'm at the beach with my mom. I'm spending time with my mom. Hey, sorry, I was getting ice cream with my little sister." So that's what I meant by he was stalling, because he didn't
Yeah.
ultimately want to. Because I just feel like if he was like dead set on wanting to put an end to all things, he wouldn't be going out of his way to do all these things after he told her, "I'm gonna do it."
So one thing about the finale of The Girl from Plainville that I wanted to mention was how, because throughout the show there were like sort of like flashbacks and stuff like that, and so in the finale of the show, we see a part about, I had it written down here. Yeah, so we see Michelle driving home for Christmas, And she gets to a bar and she runs into Conrad. And it's basically like it's sort of a version of events that she wishes happen. I was going to ask you a question. Oh, yeah. So in that sense, do you think that that was like dramatized, or do you think that she has specifically said that this is like was that scene um dramatized at all? Because it sounds like it was.
I feel like that scene was dramatized, but they were just having a super dramatic way of her facing her regrets in, her actions, because I'm sure, like, even though as deranged as, what she did was, she felt some form of remorse at some point and probably still does, like, feel bad ultimately despite what she did. Because there are scenes that, like, there are moments where, like, she was like sobbing in court while, like, they weren't even talking to her directly. It was just, they were talking about the whole case as a whole, and she was just sobbing because obviously, she feels remorse to a degree, obviously, because that's when, the real consequences settle in, that, what you didn't actually help, it actually made things worse. But
Yeah.
So I think it was dramatized, but that was just a way to dramatize her remorse in a theatrical way. Because at the end of, like, that fantasy sequence, reality came clashing with the fantasy, with, oh, we're at a bar, we run into each other, and then he goes, but this isn't really how it ends. And then he takes her to the truck where he dies, and she kind of sees
Yeah.
things, and she goes back on what she says, like, hey, please stop listening to me. I'm insane. She's crazy. Don't listen to her. Even though she's talking about herself. But that's just because this case has been going on or had been going on for years at a time, and she was, in her 20s when she actually got convicted. So obviously she had grown enough to be able to to truly understand the weight of her actions and to understand how greatly she was in the wrong, to grow from that. So I feel like the remorse and whatnot is definitely heavy now. But then I think at the time of the event, she had remorse, but it was more pushed down than, than up front.
Yep, I agree. Yeah, and I think like what you were saying is, I think like sometimes in my mind when I'm watching a show or a movie that's about a person or like a true event and that person is still alive, like aside from like a historical show or something about, people in the 17 or 1800s, sometimes I wonder if the creators or writers of the show actually contact the person. And so I just wondered if that was like any sort of input from her about a either a reoccurring dream that she has that she runs into him at a bar or something. But I think you're right. I think it was like a way for the character to, or a way in the show, a way for Michelle to sort of be faced with what could have been and if she didn't do what she did. And it's crazy because it's not like she was standing with him. It was all done through text. And I think that's one of the craziest things about it. And I think it just kind of, puts an imprint on that words matter and, just don't like it's still the whole thing is just still really shocking. But I think everybody in the show did a great job. And I think same with the Dropout. I think it's definitely, I hope it gets recognized. I know it's gotten some really positive reviews, especially for the two actors, Elle Fanning and Colton Ryan, who portrayed Michelle and Conrad. So, hopefully it gets recognized at awards. But even if it doesn't, awards don't always matter, and it's getting really positive reviews. I think it has like a 89 or a 92 on Rotten Tomatoes right now. So it's pretty good. Hulu has been doing some really good shows lately. And it's so funny because when we were just on break a few minutes ago, I texted you the trailer for season 2 of Only Murders in the Building because the trailer came out today.
I'll have to check that out. No, we'll have to check that out. One thing
Yeah.
that did bother me, like not completely, but like one thing that did bother me throughout the girl from Plainville was when they were texting, the messages were on the wrong side of the screen.
Yeah.
So it made it really like difficult to process what I was looking at because it would say like the incoming messages were on the right side and the outgoing messages on the left side when it's the other way around and has always been, but whatevs, man.
Yeah. I was going to mention that. I just figured I didn't know if I was the only one who caught that.
I don't know how they managed to put that so consistently and not realize that it's not the right thing because we all use phones every day. We text people every day. So you didn't know that the outgoing messages go on the right? Then it just made it harder to read because it's like, well, why would he be saying this? Oh wait, that's from her. I guess that pretty much wraps up what I have to say here.
Yeah, same here. I was excited to dive into these shows with you because, like I had mentioned before, I do like true stories and true crime stuff. So these were pretty interesting.
Very, very true. Yes. But I guess, like I said, that pretty much wraps up this episode here of Spoilers Only. Would you say? So,
Yeah.
anyone listening, if you have not seen either show, check out The Girl from Plainville on and The Dropout, both on Hulu. Both about some real stuffs that happen. Also, check out other documentaries about stuff if you want, like documentary style. We've mentioned a couple from each of each thing, and look forward to more stuff from us and Hulu because Hulu has been putting out some great stuff. But also, let this be a lesson. If you want to be famous or at least be a high profile person, just commit a very heinous crime and you'll be set. A very unique, heinous crime. There will be a TV show about you in the future. So,
That is true.
but it has to be unique. It has to be unique. So strive for greatness, fellas. Strive for greatness and individuality.
But yeah, that pretty much wraps up this episode. You can follow us on Twitter at Spoilers Only Duh to see fun things that we tweet from time to time. On the Twitter is also a link tree to all the links where you can stream and follow us, including we are now on Amazon Music and Audible, which is super cool. Thank you guys so much for supporting us. And we're also on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, TuneIn, iHeartRadio, pretty much all the places. So you can find us anywhere. And Inea, do you have any final words?
Follow us on Twitter, I guess. The Bird app. Do what you want, but not entirely. Unless you want a Hulu miniseries about you. So yeah.
All right. With that'll be it from us today. So once again, this has been Spoilers Only.